It's now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C. Show. Good morning, good day, good evening. Whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening, I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by, you guessed it, my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold, and you can get a copy of this book right now while you're watching or listening to the show. Just go to Amazon.com or just stay tuned because I'm going to tell you something else. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by our website, BillyCBoxing.com. Check it out for all the latest boxing news and also some stuff that you could always find out about this show and other things too. Just check it out. Don't forget to go into Dax Khan's column where he's been updating that on a regular basis. And today's show is also being brought to us in part by this year's 2024 New York State Boxing Hall of Fame induction ceremony weekend banquet. It's this Sunday, man. It's this Sunday. And what I was going to tell you about my book, I'm going to be bringing some copies of the book with me. So if you mention that you heard me say this on the show, I'll give you a free copy. How about that? I'll even sign it for you. I'm real excited and honored to be inducted this year with all the other inductees. So I hope that you've already gotten yourself a ticket and you plan to join me and the other inductees for a great day at Russo's on the Bay. It's a great package. If you haven't, there's still a little time. Just visit our website, BillyCBoxing.com, and click on the banner. You'll see it. Jeremy C., the infamous Jeremy C., who's going to be with me. So you get to meet Jeremy C. too, you know. So, and he's, rumor has it that he's the real Billy C. But anyway, you check that out. Click the banner. It'll bring you to all the information you need and how you can get tickets and all that happy stuff. Okay, today's show, my main topic is Canelo Alvarez an all-time great fighter? I mean, do you think he's an all-time great fighter? As of right now, do you think he's an all-time great fighter? Let's talk about that. To tell you the truth, when you look at Canelo Alvarez's record, look, there's a lot of back and forth going on between him and Oscar De La Hoya. If you recall, Golden Boy was his promoter in the beginning. I got to be honest, I was present for several of Canelo Alvarez's fights when he was with Golden Boy in Las Vegas, and they were great events. We did several shows from there. We have some of the interviews broken out of the show you can find up on YouTube and our podcast and stuff like that. But look, when let's and by the way, I'm not taking anything away from Oscar because Oscar, in my opinion, was a great fighter. He's an all-time great right now, too. And Oscar never ducked anybody. If you take a look at Canelo Alvarez's record, right? His first 20 pro fights, okay, they were against just no names that you at least I never heard of. A lot of them were in Mexico. In his fifth pro fight, he suffered, or I don't know if you would call it suffering, but he received a draw against a 3-6 guy. And his 14th fight, his 14th pro fight, he won a 10-round decision over Christian Solano, who was a decent fighter. I mean, 22 wins, 9 losses, and 3 draws. And then in his 19th fight, he had an 11th round stoppage over Gabriel Martinez, who was undefeated at 17-0-1. And then you start looking at his record from that point, okay? So you're looking at his 21st fight was against Miguel Vasquez, who was was a pretty good fighter in 2008. 21 wins, 2 losses at the time. Canelo won a 10-round decision over him. He beat Raul Pinzon in 2008 in his 24th fight. That fight was held in the U.S. in Miami, and he won a first-round knockout over Pinzon, who was 16-1 at the time. And then, as his career progressed, you got to kind of give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, he did beat better than average fighters. I mean, you see a lot of other fighters moving up in their careers, and they're not fighting. I mean, his opponent that he's fighting this weekend in Edgar Berlanga has fought no one near the abilities of the opponents that Canelo Alvarez has fought, let alone in his first 20-something fights. In his I said his 24th fight, he had already fought Pinzon. He fought a couple of other respectable fighters. And then in his 30th fight, it kind of shifted gears for Canelo, because when you start looking, and this is in 2009, he fought Carlos Leonardo Herrera, who was 21-1. And that was his 30th fight. He blew him away, first round stoppage. He comes back and fights Leonardo Tyner. Now, I don't know if you remember, but Leonardo Tyner was relevant. He was 21-2. Give a shout out to my man Joel, who's in the chat room, longtime listener. So he starts fighting. I mean, you're talking, in 2009, he starts fighting, fighters that were up there. Jose Miguel Cotto, the brother of Miguel Cotto. He fought and stopped him. Jose Miguel Cotto was 31 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw in 2010, and Canelo beat him with a 9th round knockout. He turns around and later that same year and fights and beats and stops Carlos Baldemir in 6 rounds. Love more than ado. He fights in the end of 2010. He fought 5 times in 2010, something that, fighters don't do anymore, and it just keeps getting better and better. I mean, first of all, we're talking, 14 years ago, and, the level of opposition: Matthew Hatton, Ryan Rhodes, Alfonso Gomez, Kermit Cintron, who's former champion, Sugar Shane Mosley, in a fight. I mean, Josito Lopez. I've always loved Josito Lopez. He's a warrior fighter. Fought him in 2012, stopped him in 5, fought and beat Austin Trout, who was a world champion. The list goes on. Floyd Mayweather, he lost to in 2013. He comes back, he beats Angulo, Erslandy Lara with a close split decision. James Kirkland, who was 32-1 at the time. A lot of people thought, he was top dog in the division, and Canelo knocks him out in 3. He fights Miguel Cotto in 2015, wins a 12-round decision. Beats Amir Khan, stops him in the 6th round. Beats and stops Liam Smith in 2016. The Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. fight, wins a 12-round decision against him in 2017. Triple G. Okay, the Triple G fights, you could make any kind of argument, but he fights and won a majority decision in 2018. Rocky Fielding, Daniel Jacobs, Sergey Kovalev. I was ringside for both those fights, Jacobs and Kovalev in Vegas. Callum Smith, Yildirim, he beats Billy Joe Saunders. Remember, Billy Joe Saunders was undefeated, 30-0 at the time. And you start getting into more recent times. 2021, he beat and stopped Khalid Plant. Dimitri Bivol beats him in 22. Triple G, he won again in 22. And honestly, that fight should have taken place a lot sooner. John Ryder, listen, I saw John Ryder fight on one of the undercards. I believe it was the Daniel Jacobs one in Las Vegas. And honestly, I didn't know much about Ryder, but, he's a tough kid. And I think I think he showed that against Canelo, and a lot of Canelo haters were saying, John Ryder exposed him and everything. Look, I just went through a decade of fights that Canelo Alvarez fought, upper echelon fighters. He fought and beat Charlo, who's a fraud. I mean, to me, that wasn't much. I mean, Charlo, some people thought he was good, but he had no problem with Charlo. Charlo just ran and wanted to survive. And in his last fight, he fought Jaime Munguia. In that one, won a 12-round decision. I actually thought Munguia was going to give him a much better fight. Now he steps into the ring with Edgar Berlanga. I'll break down that fight in a little bit, but we're just talking right now. And if you're watching live, give me your thoughts in the chat room, and I'll comment on them. But Canelo Alvarez to date has defeated 19 world champions. 19. I believe that's the most for a professional fighter. Look, Canelo Alvarez is, in my opinion, he's an all-time great right now. My knock on Canelo is that he was an all-time great a couple of years ago too. I believe that what he says, and he says he wants to be a great fighter. He says he wants to be remembered as the best. He's certainly not following what he used to do with his. Although I gave him credit for fighting Jaime Munguia, and Ryder gave him more of a fight than any of us thought. But he has since the Bivol fight. He has kind of taken some easier fights. And this weekend is another example of it. My opinion is that he's an all-time great fighter now. And if he walks away from the game now, or even if he should lose in the future, he's not losing this weekend, but should he lose in the future, I don't think it's going to take away from his all-time greatness. I just don't. I think he's proved going up and down in weight classes and winning in these weight classes. I think he's proved that he's an all-time great fighter. Now, when you look at him now, he's trying to make as much money as he can for the least amount of risk. He's aged before our eyes. He's already 34. I remember talking about him 10 years ago and how young he was and everything else. And he's matured into, a 34-year-old starting to be considered an aging fighter, right? But Canelo Alvarez, to me, is an all-time great fighter. Now, when you look at his skill set, you got to wonder. I've flip-flopped more than Kamala Harris has on several things with Canelo. And, one of them is, look, the guy is always in phenomenal shape. So the discipline is there. He's got a granite chin. These two things haven't changed. At times, he appeared to know how to box. But then other times he didn't, whether he wasn't wanting to box, whether his opponent was making him not be able to box. Yeah, my man, team Batman Boxing in the chat room is saying he's an all-time great, no doubt. I agree. I just think that of late he's starting to maybe his skill set is starting to erode a little bit, and he's doing other things. He does have deceivingly fast hands. I don't think you think of him as a guy that's equipped with some hand speed, but he does. I like the way he breaks down fighters, working the body. He tries to move forward all the time, and at times he fights to the level of his opposition and the way they're fighting to him. What I mean with this is, he's a guy that if you're going to go toe to toe and you want a slugfest, Canelo's going to give you one back. If you're just trying to survive against Canelo's going to just beat you. I would like to see him continue with his aggressiveness. Now, the age could be playing a factor, and I honestly think that he is on the downslide. And I think the indication of the level of opposition that he's been facing is proof of that. Nothing for something says he plays with his food too much. I think I just kind of said the same thing. If you're gonna go in there and try and stop Canelo, he's gonna counter with aggressiveness. If you go in there and try to pussyfoot around, he's gonna react to that as well. I like his professionalism. Um, he's like I said, he's always in shape. Something Floyd Mayweather, I give credit for, although I don't think Floyd Mayweather is as great as Floyd thinks he is. But I always have given him respect in the sense. Hold on, let me finish. I know people are going, "What are you talking about?" No, I've given him respect in the sense that he's always in shape, and he's always in shape. I'll give him that. Team Batman says he always looks faster than the opponents. He's a great fighter. I appreciate him. While he's around, we've been both lucky enough to see him live when I see him outside the MGM at Canelo versus Kovalev. Yeah, I was ringside for that fight. And he's all business when it comes to boxing. He doesn't smile much, and I respect what he's done for himself and for the sport. I'm losing a little respect now because I've learned. I'm an old man now, and I've learned that when fighters say I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and they don't do that. And in Canelo's case, he very rarely talks shit. But he says, I'm fighting the best. I want to prove to be one of the best Mexican fighters ever. And he's not really fighting the best. I mean, okay, somebody could say to me, well, who do you want him to fight? David Benavidez, a lot of people want him to fight. David Benavidez, the skill set of Benavidez is nowhere near Canelo Alvarez. But David Benavidez poses a risk to Canelo because of the size difference and the age difference. I think that was really. You got to remind me. Team says here we spoke at that fight. Yeah, now I can't picture who you were. You go by incognito with your name here, but yeah, that's cool. I'm glad we got to see. Nothing for something says if he's fighting, I'm watching. I like him as a fighter. He also says maybe those fights with Triple G took a bit out of him as well. I'm not so sure about. I think any fight takes up. Nothing for something like Canelo's body work against Benavidez could get nasty. The thing is the size difference. It just I don't know. If somebody says, well, who do I want him to fight? Listen, I recently saw that he said that he's open to a rematch with Bivol. I think the fact that he lost to Bivol and said that he wanted a rematch, and how long has it been? It's been 2 years since the fight, and I think that he's gotten a lot of grief over that. And I also think that he thinks that Bivol's not going to come out on top against Beterbiev in their upcoming fight. But I do think that is unfinished business. And should Canelo lose again, I think the book would be closed and Canelo would admit. I don't think that Canelo has trouble admitting if somebody was better than him. Although he did say he thought he beat Bivol in that fight. But in any event, I don't know. I really thought that the fight that I wanted to see was against Crawford. And the reason why I say that is because Crawford has the ability to squeak out a win over Canelo. I think he does. I think his style, to get in and get out, and I could see him causing Canelo to chase him around the ring, plotting and waiting for an opening and just never getting it. That's why I thought that would be a good one. The fight doctor's saying $90 to watch Alvarez beat up on a glorified sparring partner is a joke. I'm going to get to that right now, because when you look at this fight this weekend, I think, and I talked about this last week, about the way boxing has become and the fact that the fights don't seem competitive anymore. What's happened, and you look at this card, all right? It's a terrible card, boys and girls. It's a terrible card from top to bottom. All right. I mean, Danny Garcia, I love Danny Garcia. I like watching him fight. But what this card is, and what these people, the PBC, what they expect you to do, just like Nothing for Something just said in the chat room, if he's fighting, I'm going to watch it. That's what they're banking on. I talked to a few people over the last several weeks, and I've come to the conclusion that today's youths, right, the fans that aren't watching this show, because a lot of young boxing fans have turned away from this show because we talk a lot from the historical perspective, and really diehard fans favor this show more than anyone else. But the thing that I'm realizing from talking to fight fans, and don't get me wrong, I respect all fight fans, all boxing fans, because we're far and few in between. When you take the sport of boxing, which was a mainstream sport not that long ago, I mean, you're talking about 50s, 60s, 70s, and it started teetering out towards the end of the 80s. It was mainstream. I mean, you heard about, you knew who the boxers were. You could ask somebody on the street who the champions were, and they could most likely tell you, at least the heavyweight champ. I'm not so sure about that today. But what I've come up with these, most of the younger fans, is that that's what they're paying to see. It's not, you look at this line, 18 to 1 was the other day, yesterday. Canelo 18-1, which in dollars means you're laying out $1,800 to win $100. And you would think that if you were going to bet the dog in this, if you were going to bet Berlanga, that you would bet $100 and win $1,800. But that's not the case. You'd win, I believe, $1,000. The last time I saw it, he was plus 10-1. So I mean, you're laying 18-1, you're winning 10-1. So Vegas doesn't, they don't even want people to bet the fight, because everybody knows who's going to win. And that's exactly what it seems the younger fans do, that they'll go to watch an event live or buy the pay-per-view. And the idea is they just want to watch Canelo fight. They're not buying it or wanting to watch it to see a competitive match. And that's what the problem is, boys and girls. The problem is if you're Canelo or you're any other fighter that can make a ton of money, why should you risk fighting a formidable foe if you're still going to make the same amount of money with a lesser amount of risk? And that's what has happened to the sport of boxing. There's a lot of guys right now that are in the gym that aren't even ranked, that could probably kick the living shit out of a lot of the fighters that are out there right now, but they're never going to get the opportunity. They can't just wait around. Years ago, they used to be able to work their way into a shot. Not so much anymore. This fight card is a joke. And to pay $89.99 for this fight, where you could pretty much know who's going to win, they're robbing us. And I'm not buying it. I'm telling you right now, I am not buying this fight. And as much as I'll find the replay of it the next day or whatever. I won't know what the results are, and I'll watch it the next day, and I'll be able to give you my thoughts on it. But I mean, come on. This is not worth the money. And then next weekend, we got a card that I can't wait to see, with Daniel Dubois fighting Anthony Joshua. Excuse me. It's still, in my opinion, not a 50-50 fight, and neither does Vegas. Vegas has Joshua as a 5-1 favorite. And if you recall, the title is on the line. The IBF world heavyweight title they gave to Daniel Dubois. But you got Anthony Kakachi against Josh Warrington, Joshua Butasi against Willie Hutchinson. Those are good fights. Those are 50-50 fights. And by the way, yeah, it's a pay-per-view, but it's only $20. I mean, it's worth it. Fight Doctor says Alvarez should just retire. When you're making the money he's making for not doing it, I mean, come on. My man Randy says I turned down going to the fight so I could be with me and the other inductees on Sunday. My man Randy. If you don't know who Randy is, Randy Gordon, man. He's Randy's Reach. Come on. But the thing is, Randy says to me, I was on his great show a couple of weeks ago, maybe it's been a month already, and he said, Billy C, what's going to happen is you're going to be smiling. Your mouth is going to hurt from smiling. He's got me thinking, and the closer we get, now that it's Sunday, I'm thinking, I don't know what I'm going to say. As a matter of fact, you guys can't see it in the camera shot, but right over there, I have the inaugural New York State Boxing Hall of Fame poster. Now, who gave it to me? The late, great, and a good friend of mine, Harold Letterman. And he came on this show, and what Randy was telling me, I could see over the phone Harold. And I got to see Harold, luckily, before he passed, several times. And it was such an honor for him. He loved getting inducted into the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. He had come on this show many times, and I miss him. And he had sent me that. And it's, it's over there. Trust me. And he was so excited about it. And as it's getting closer, I myself can feel the excitement. And I'm looking forward to getting my picture taken with Randy Gordon, the man with the lollipop and the sunglasses and the baseball cap, in case you missed them, But anyway, this fight, this weekend, Berlanga, come on. I mean, Randy's much more of what am I going to say? A corporate man than me. So, he probably controls himself a lot better than me with opinions because he tries to and has to do the right thing with Sirius. But for me, and look, this is not going to be an entertaining fight. It's not even going to be a close fight. Edgar Berlanga, I just went through the whole thing of why I think that Canelo Alvarez is an all-time great fighter right now. And you look at Edgar Berlanga, there's no big names. There's not one big name. I just read off a couple of dozen big names on Canelo Alvarez's resume. There's not one on Berlanga. I mean, look, Berlanga has fought 22 fights in his career. He does have a little over 77% knockout ratio. He's 22-0 with 17 knockouts. He's got 72 rounds as a pro. 424 less rounds than Canelo. I mean, talk about experience. Yes, he's got a 5.5-inch height advantage, and yes, he's got a 2.5-inch reach advantage. And he's 7 years younger at 27. It's not going to make a difference. The best fights on his record that I'm giving him credit for: October of 21, he won a 10-round unanimous decision over Marcelo Cosares. In March of 22, he won a 10-round decision over Steve Rolls. And last year in June, he beat Jason Quigley in a 12-round decision. Those were a couple of the fights that he didn't knock out his opponent. He's saying he's going to knock out Canelo. He is ranked by the WBC number 8, the WBA number 1, and the WBO number 4. The computer has him at number 6. Why the IBF doesn't have him ranked, I don't know. But it is what it is. I tell you, Team Batman Boxing, I wish I was going to be at the AJ fight. That's the fight I really wish I was going to. That's a great card. But anyway, as far as Berlanga against Canelo, Canelo, look, man, 424 more rounds as a pro. He's a WBC, WBA, and WBO world super middleweight champion. The computer has him ranked at number 1 in the world. He's a former junior middleweight, super middleweight, lightweight, light heavyweight world champion. It ain't worth the money, boys and girls. Canelo's going to win this fight, and he's going to win it easily. And, not that he's gotten a knockout too often of late. I believe he's getting one this weekend. And like I said, I'm not buying it. I'm just not. But a couple of other things I wanted to mention. There's a unification fight taking place in Saudi Arabia on November 16th. It's a cruiserweight unification. Gilberto Ramirez, 46-1 with 30 knockouts, is taking on Chris Billiam Smith, who's 20-1 with 13 knockouts. I like the fight. I like that fight. It's a good fight. In the super lightweight eliminator for the WBO, Jose Ramirez, 29-1, is taking on Arnold Barbosa, who's undefeated at 30-0. There's a lightweight 10-round fight. William Zapata, 31-0 with 27 knockouts against Tevin Farmer. Hey, listen, Tevin Farmer, although he's lost several fights, 33 wins, 6 losses, and a draw, he's a formidable foe too. I like this fight as well. You got Oscar Collazo against Edwin Hernandez in the minimum weight championship for the WBO, and a super lightweight eliminator for the WBA, Oscar Duarte, taking on Kenneth Sims Jr. I like the card. It's a free one, and this is my point. Couple of things I wanted to mention. Give a shout out to Unofficial Official, giving me a shout out in the chat room. I appreciate it. Look, there's 3 fight cards coming up. I just said I like that one, but the 3 big fight cards coming up that I would like to see and I can't wait for. First and foremost is the big fight that's taking place next week that I'm jealous that my man Batman Boxing is going to be there and I'm not. But I'll get to watch it on the Zone pay-per-view. Daniel Dubois, who's now the IBF World Heavyweight Champion, is putting his title on the line against Anthony Joshua. I love this fight, and I love both these fighters. As far as Daniel Dubois goes, look, here's the thing about Daniel Dubois. I think they rushed him. I really do. I think they rushed this kid. He's still young. He's still in his 20s. I think he might just be 26 or something. He's improving. And, fighting Anthony Joshua right now, I know it's a big money fight for him over on the other side of the pond. And I do believe that he's going to lose this fight. But I don't think that's the end of Dubois. And that, boys and girls, is the difference between fight fans in the UK and fight fans here in the USA. Because fight fans in the UK know the sport of boxing, and they know a fighter's not done after losing 1 fight or 2 fights or even 5 fights. As long as they come to fight and they improve and, they get caught. I mean, listen, boxing is that kind of business, man. You get caught, it's over. Especially in the heavyweight division. That doesn't mean you're done. It's terrible the way fight fans here in the States look at it, As far as Anthony Joshua is concerned, look, I've always loved Anthony Joshua. The thing with Anthony Joshua is the mental part. He's been up and down mentally at times. Here's a kid that rushed to the top, making all kinds of money. I mean, I was in Florida a couple months ago. It was about a month and a half ago. And I saw a billboard with Anthony Joshua on it in Florida. So, I mean, look, Anthony Joshua makes a ton of money outside the ring. He's a good-looking guy. He's big. He's strong. He can box. I mean, this was a money machine. Unfortunately, the Deontay Wilder fight never happened when it should have. And we all know what happened. Both of them ended up losing. Now Joshua's, fighting again. In his last fight, he looked fantastic. He really did. And if he maintains that style, that mental state, that aggressiveness, and it seems that he's tightened up his defense a little bit because that was his weakness, his chinny chin chin. And the truth of the matter is the guy has got some great boxing skill. Daniel Dubois took too many shots in his last fight, and he took too many shots in his previous fight. So I mean, as long as Anthony Joshua doesn't get caught, if he fights smart, and I don't mean fighting scared, I mean fighting smart. He should win this fight. And the funny thing about Dubois is, he had a suspect chin. And all of a sudden, his chinny chin chin seems to be kind of solid. Watching him take the shots he took in his last fight, I was saying, oh, maybe his chin isn't as bad as I thought. I can't wait for this fight. It's a great card. And once again, the UK on the zone, they take it over. So I'm looking forward to this one next weekend. That's September 21st. Then on October 12th, another pay-per-view. Yeah, what happened to free boxing on TV, right? Another pay-per-view. Now, this could arguably be, now don't get me wrong, Tyson Fury and Usyk and AJ and Dubois, and we had some great fights over the last couple of years, and we're continuing with some decent matchups, and of course we got some garbage sprinkled in, but Artur Beterbiev against Dmitry Bivol for a unification fight in the light heavyweight division. I mean, does it get better than this, boys and girls? I mean, really, these are the two top light heavyweights. There's no question about it. And neither one of them pussyfooted around. They both wanted this fight. What do we got here? We got Dmitry Bivol, a guy that I just said earlier, outboxed Canelo. And although Canelo wants him again, Bivol's boxing skills are superb. In his last outing, he got the knockout that he couldn't find for a few years. And he steps in the ring with Artur Beterbiev. Now, Beterbiev, he could box too, but he's an animal. This is a guy he's never seen. Do you realize, first of all, he's won every fight by knockout, so he's got 100% KO ratio, right? But he's never even heard or felt what it's like to be waiting for the judges' scorecards. None of his fights have ever went the distance. He's taken on Bivol. And I like this fight. I really do. It seems to be the most meaningful fight in the light heavyweight division in decades. I think the age is a storyline. Bivol's 33, 6 years younger than Beterbiev, who's 39 years old. My buddy John Iceman Scully, he's going to be in the corner. He was on this show before they canceled the first date of this fight, and he said, that Beterbiev can box, and he said, "You watch, and listen, I've known John for a long time." And he knows boxing. There's no question about it. And it's going to be tough to go against Beterbiev. When that fight happens, I will surely break it down. Don't call me Shirley. And finally, the fight that we're looking forward to, the rematch in the heavyweight division for the WBC, WBO, and IBF world. And the WBA world heavyweight titles, because Usyk gave up the IBF title and Dubois has it now. Usyk against Tyson Fury. My early thoughts and predictions on this fight, because I know people are already talking about it. Look, every time I went against Usyk, I was wrong, right? I went with him against Tyson Fury when they fought. I went with Usyk. I picked it. Everybody said I was nuts. Everybody, not everybody, 95% of the people went with Tyson Fury. All right. For some reason, I thought that Usyk would win. And as it unfolded, he did. All right. Tyson Fury, he claims he won the fight. I don't think so. I mean, he won the latter rounds, but the scorecard was already It was already well in Usyk's favor, and he won by the split decision. But in this fight, in the rematch, I think, and these are early predictions, right? My early predictions for these three fights, I'm taking Anthony Joshua over Dubois, Beterbiev over Bivol. Now, in this fight, look, I I like Usyk, all right? Usyk is mentally, he's strong. He comes on stronger as the fight goes on. Fighting this guy must wear you down, and I don't mean from punches. I mean just mentally and the way he comes across and those those looks he gives. Right? Fight doctor agrees that Beterbiev he thinks is going to win. But I think that Usyk's last two fights, his last few fights, two against Anthony Joshua, the one against Dubois, and his recent win over Fury, I think they took a lot out of him. I really do. I think that he left a lot of himself in the rings of all those fights. Now, he came out on top, and then his next fight he won, and so on and so forth. He hasn't lost yet. But I think that wear and tear, so to speak, and the mileage that he's put on himself, I think it's going to catch up with him. I think Fury's going to win the rematch. And I think that that's going to set up arguably the biggest heavyweight fight in history. Definitely the biggest heavyweight fight in the UK in history. Assuming Anthony Joshua wins, I think we will see Joshua and Fury. Or I wouldn't be totally shocked if Fury hangs him up should he win and retire as a champ. If he loses, I see him hanging him up. Look, Tyson Fury doesn't need any money. Neither does AJ. Neither does Canelo. But a lot of these guys, if you're going to truly fight for legacy, then fight the biggest names. And that is how I'm circling back to Canelo. Do I think he's an all-time great fighter? Of course he's an all-time great fighter. He's there. He's now, right now. I don't care what he does for the rest of his career. He could lose Sunday or Saturday. I'm going to watch it on Sunday. But I'm not paying for it. I'm going to watch a replay. Even if he lost, and then he lost again and again, if he lost his next three fights, he's still, in my opinion, an all-time great fighter. And I think that, his legacy will remain. But I think that if fighters do choose to go for legacy only, they need to fight the best of the best, and they need to do great things. Great fighters do great things. That's what I love about Terence Crawford. And that's what I love about the fact that Terence Crawford wants to fight Canelo. I think that should be a fight that's made, because Canelo, although he's, getting on in age, a rematch with Bivol to me makes sense. If Bivol wins or loses, it doesn't matter, right? I think that makes sense. I think I think Canelo wants it mentally. But the fight against Benavidez doesn't make sense. I know a lot of people want to see it, but I don't think it makes sense. I don't think Benavidez is on the same level, although his youth and his size kind of gives him an edge. I don't know. I'm not interested in that fight. As far as Canelo goes, after he knocks out Berlanga, which is going to take place this weekend, I would like to see him fight either Bivol or Crawford. The Crawford fight is a legacy fight for Crawford. And I know Canelo has mentioned that, he's in a lose-lose situation, because if he beats Crawford, people are going to say, oh, well, you're so much bigger and this and that. But Crawford's the guy challenging him. Look, it's the same thing. One of the greatest heavyweights of all time, Jack Johnson, fought one of the greatest middleweights of all time in Stanley Ketchel. And Jack Johnson beat Stanley Ketchel. But it was Stanley Ketchel who challenged Jack Johnson. If a smaller fighter is challenging the larger fighter, it's a different story than if the larger fighter seeks out a smaller or lesser opponent and then wins. So in this case, Terrence Crawford is trying to cement his legacy as an all-time great by doing something outside of the box. Roy Jones Jr. did it. I mean, you look at Roy Jones Jr. Going from super middleweight, light heavyweight, and winning the heavyweight title, and then being the first, I think, for almost 100 years that went back down to light heavyweight and reclaimed that title. So yes, and John Ruiz was a legitimate heavyweight and heavyweight champion. So I know people knock. Look, people are always going to find reasons to knock accomplishments of fighters for some strange reason. But the bottom line to me is great fighters do great things. They challenge themselves. That's been my knock on Floyd Mayweather Jr. Was he a good fighter? Yeah. Was he always in shape? Yeah. But he never did great things. He did calculated things. That's smart. I mean, look, from a money perspective and from no mileage on him and all his faculties, what little he started with, he still has. I mean, the truth of the matter is that's great, and that's intelligent. But don't tell me that you're the greatest because you did all these great things, because you didn't. I think great fighters, historically speaking, are fighters that did great things, that challenged themselves, that did things that people said you can't do. You can't win that fight. You can't win a heavyweight title fight, Roy. You can't do it. What are you, nuts, fighting that heavyweight Stanley? What are you nuts? So these are the things. And that's what I respect about TC. That's what I respect about Terrence Crawford. Campaigning and banging around the junior middleweight division, big effing deal. I mean, come on. I personally thought he was, to tell you the truth, I thought that Terrence Crawford should stay in the welterweight division unless he's going to fight, Canelo. And the truth of the matter is Crawford's got nothing left to prove either. And he's pushing 40 now, so, you got to know when to say when. All right. So listen, one last thing. If you're not doing anything, and even if you are, like me, I'm a Jets fan. I know. I'm sorry. I'm still sick over that God-forsaken performance that the Petunia Jets, all this hype that they're going to do this. Just like the fighters, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And they did none of that. And that Hackett, that Hackett offensive coordinator, I've said it before and I'll say it again. He shouldn't even be allowed to be in a stadium. He shouldn't be allowed to watch an NFL game on television, let alone call a game. He is the worst effing offensive coordinator I have ever seen, not just with the Jets. Follow the whole history. And he's so, I mean, Hall looked like an ordinary running back. You know why? Because everybody in the place knew the play calls because he's so predictable. Anyway, whether you are watching that or not, like myself, I'm probably not even gonna record it. I'm going to be at the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame at Russo's on the Bay Sunday from 12:30 to 5. Fantastic menu there, open bar. Get yourself a ticket. I want to meet you because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be inducted in there. So come and join us. You just saw that Randy Gordon's going to be there. I can't wait to see who else is there. So get yourself some tickets right now. I'm sure you still can. Just go to our website, BillyCBoxing.com, and there's a banner with my stupid looking face on there. Jeremy C did it. And click that, and that'll bring you right to the page where you can reach out to Jack Hirsch by phone or email. Get yourself some tickets and mention my book if you don't have it already. I'll give you a copy. I'll sign it and give you a copy. All right. Hey, Lovett's a Jets fan too, huh? And Randy's saying, bring your appetite. Randy's got me fasting. I'm going to start fasting. He told me about all the food, so, and I've, the truth of the matter is I've never been to Russo's on the Bay, and I've not heard one negative thing about the place. And I tell you, I know of a guy that's going to be there. My man Augie from Riverhead and his son are going to be there, and I can't wait to meet these guys. We chat a lot on the phone, and they're great boxing fans, and I'm looking forward to meeting them and the rest of you. So make sure you get yourself a ticket. Come on and see me. Come on and see Randy. Come on and see all the rest of the 2024 inductees, and talk boxing with everyone that's there, because I can assure you that they're all boxing fans. All right, boys and girls, thanks for tuning in. And make sure you tune in next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, ciao, baby.